It's never too promising when someone is about to start a speech and they start with an apology. But my Hebrew is something that I've been trying to learn in the last hour, so I hope forgiveness. I kind of hope forgiveness runs deep in your hearts. Your Excellency, Chief Rabbi, Rabbanim, ladies and gentlemen, chaverim of Bnei Akiva. I remain optimistic, as all politicians do, that I will improve with age. It is an honour to be with you this evening to celebrate Israel's 70th birthday. Israel is a great success story. It's a timeless story of human endeavour and of pioneering spirit. It's a story of hope. It's a story of belief. To see this synagogue here in Finchley bursting with energy and so many young people is truly uplifting. And let me take the opportunity to thank my friend, Mike Freer MP, for inviting me here this evening. I had a true honour of serving with Mike in the whip's office. And not many of you will probably know what whips are, but you will probably think that they have to have the qualities of slightly devious nature, a sly way in terms of handling themselves. But Mike has many other qualities as well as those. But one of the things that always struck me with working with Mike was his kindness and his decency, and whoever he was dealing with, whether they're members of Parliament, when they're members of Parliament and whatever their problems, he always shows that kindness to them. And I'm sure that that is what he does in everything he does here in Finchley. I'm privileged to speak here at this shul after the inspirational Chief Rabbi who does such an enormous and outstanding job representing the Jewish community in our country. I must say, when I listen to you on the radio, you have a calming way in which you address the nation, and you bring the whole nation with you when you do speak. And that is a quality I think that as politicians we can only aspire to. But it is always good to inspire to something in life. There is no greater champion or more effective spokesman than Your Excellency Ambassador Regev. You constantly speak with such a strong and thoughtful voice for the state of Israel. And you do your country proud. But what is more, you have, and I hope you always will be, a great friend of Great Britain. I see in you a man that not just only has a passion for Israel, but seems to have a real passion for Britain. That makes you so much more easy to deal with. To know that you have an ambassador in this country that truly cares and is passionate about the relationship and wants to create and build something that is stronger than what you inherited is what you look for in all ambassadors. And I have no doubt it wins so many hearts and minds right across government, so we're deeply indebted for your work and building an ever closer relationship between our two great nations. Birthdays are always an opportunity to reflect on where we've come from, where we are today, and where we are going. That is especially the case today. So it's appropriate, before the celebrations begin across Israel, to mark Yom Ha'atzmaut, Mike is so much better than this than I am. That we remember those who have given their lives in defence of Israel's independence, those cruelly killed in acts of terrorism and hate, those who have been willing to give everything for the safety of Israel. This is a ceremony. It's a powerful reminder of the sanctity of human life, which is so central to the Jewish faith. As the Secretary of State for Defence, I am reminded each and every day of the heroism and sacrifices of the brave men and women in our armed services. To do the job I do is a truly humbling role. You realise that there are people who are willing to give literally everything that they have for the safety of others. We are all indebted to them, not just here in Great Britain, but those also who defend Israel from the dangers and threats that it faces. Because there is perhaps no country in the world more deeply affected by conflict and terrorism than Israel. Indeed, it has touched on every family and every community in Israel. From the very foundation 70 years ago, through to the young men and women of the IDF today. Israel and Israeli society has given so much. As a mark of respect for this important occasion, Israel fell silent as sirens sounded across the country. It is a deeply moving commemoration of the fallen. May their memory forever be a blessing. But we're not just here today to look back, but to look forward. Israel is now indulging in a birthday party that I suspect will be a tad more raucous than the average 70-year-olds. Though some of you in this room may prove me wrong on that matter. From Metula in the north all the way to the south in Eilat, Israelis will take to the streets to celebrate their country, to celebrate independence, to celebrate democracy, to celebrate life, and to celebrate some extraordinary achievements. What Israel has achieved in a mere 7 decades is nothing short of remarkable. Ambassador, your country has come an extraordinarily long way from such humble and fragile beginnings. From those founding fathers that turned the desert into an oasis after the darkest period in Jewish history, Israel has blossomed, becoming a powerhouse with a prosperous economy. It has overcome every challenge it has faced, from security through to the scarcity of natural resources. The Jewish state now exports these great achievements across the world. Remote villages in Africa are given the gift of electricity and access to clean water, thanks to solar power systems that can be monitored live in Tel Aviv, courtesy of Innovation Africa. Israeli emergency relief teams are often the first to arrive at natural disasters, where they are able to rapidly deploy their world-leading expertise. Israel truly is a light unto other nations, but security remains a challenge. No country is more aware of its geopolitical surroundings than Israel. On its southern border, Egypt's Sinai Peninsula has been ravaged by Daesh's linked terror groups. Hamas continues to rule Gaza with an iron fist and is in a constant effort to pose security threats to Israel. Just last weekend, the IDF revealed it had destroyed a sophisticated Hamas attack tunnel leading from the Gaza Strip into Israeli territory. It is reportedly the longest and deepest underground passage yet discovered by Israel. And it's chilling to think what Hamas's plans were for such a tunnel. The terror group's thousands of rockets continue to threaten everyday life across much of Israel. To its north, Israel is faced with a threat of as many as 150,000 Iranian-supplied rockets in Hezbollah-dominated southern Lebanon, along with combat units now battle-hardened from their time bolstering President Assad in Syria. A few miles further east, the war in Syria shows no sign of ending, and the entry of Russia and Iran into the 7-year war has seen the levels of bloodshed increase. Less than 2 weeks ago, we saw what the Syrian regime was willing to do. President Assad launched a devastating chemical attack against the city of Douma. We have all seen the images of young children and other civilians suffering the immense pain from chlorine and sarin nerve agents. I ask myself, how can anyone do that to people that they are meant to protect, people that they are meant to look after, the people that they are meant to care for? Many of these people had just been hiding in basements as the regime launched another indiscriminate offensive against a beleaguered town. It goes to show how little care some people have for life, with up to 75 people killed and many more injured in what can only be described as something that is so depraved, with no care for humanity. Last century, we bore witness to the horrors of chemicals being used against humankind. At a time, humanity came together to say never again. This isn't something that we should ever tolerate, we shouldn't ever see, we shouldn't ever allow. But since 2013, we have seen a pattern of deadly toxin attacks launched against the Syrian people by its own government. We cannot stand idly by while Assad treats innocent civilians with contempt. By doing nothing, we say to him that it is okay to continue to do what he has been doing. So often, tragedy in the world has been when people have stood by and done nothing. And quite simply, enough is enough. It is important to remind those who wish to deploy such appalling weapons that never again truly means never again. This is why the Prime Minister made her decision to join our allies, America and France, in making carefully targeted strikes early Saturday morning. It was a determined, calculated, and decisive effort to degrade the Syrian regime's ability to use chemical weapons. We acted to alleviate human suffering. It was the right thing to do, both legally and morally. These weapons have been used in flagrant breach of all international law. And President Assad needs to know that there are consequences to actions. And as I said at the weekend, our nation has always been prepared to stand up, make difficult decisions, and do what is right for our national and global security. That is what we have done in the past, time and time again. It is sometimes lonely, and you will sometimes be criticized. But I believe that one of the great virtues of the British people, of our great nation, is a willingness to stand up to evil, to stand up to those who wish to do harm to others. That is what makes Britain the nation that it is. Israel faces its own daily challenges to ensure that its people are safe. Israel has to take its defense so seriously, for if it doesn't, it lets itself be vulnerable as a nation, and those who wish to do it harm, it gives them the opportunity to destroy it. As Rabbi Hillel said, "If I'm not for myself, who will be for me?" But reality is that many of our threats are shared. And that's not all that we have in common. Our relationship is underpinned by a shared sense of values, justice, compassion, and tolerance. It is no coincidence that our nations are among the very few to have had female prime ministers. As I well know, with two daughters, it's usually women that run most things, not just in the home, but also in the nation. Nor is it any wonder that Israel is one of a few countries in the world where an ex-RAF pilot can aspire to be an Israeli president, like Isa Weizmann. Speaking personally, I will never forget my first visit to Israel as a 13-year-old boy. I wasn't there for my bar mitzvah. Knowing nothing about the country, and having rarely travelled much further outside of Yorkshire, I didn't really know what to expect of Israel. I didn't know what I would see. And I was greeted by a liberal, free, exciting country that was so at ease with itself, so comfortable with what it was, who it was, its place in the world. A country that had absorbed and welcomed so many people, a country that had made an enormous impression upon me by the welcome it gave to a young 13-year-old lad from Yorkshire. I hope to soon visit Israel to see for myself the impressive strides forward that it has made. Given we have so much in common, it's no wonder we're working ever more closely together. Today, Israel is a cornerstone of much of what we do in the Middle East, and I'm committed to continue to build upon that. But though our relationship is flourishing, it pains me to see that some quarters of our society, there is still the virus of anti-Semitism. Just yesterday, in the House of Commons, for me it was a very sad day, because we felt the need to have a debate about anti-Semitism. We shouldn't have to have a debate about anti-Semitism, because it shouldn't be something that is ever tolerated, ever part of our society. I think of my two daughters. I want them to grow up in a country that does not hate. I want them to grow up in a country where they do not fear. I want that of every child that grows up in that country, not to fear for what they believe in, their faith, their religion, the things that are important to them. We've got to do everything that we can, every single minute of every single hour of every day, a week, a month, a year, to make sure that that hatred cannot be allowed to take root in this country, that we give no quarter. We do not let it exist. Do not let it be about. It is not something that any of us can and must ever tolerate. That is not what any of us should ever accept or want for any of our children, whatever faith, whatever background, wherever we come from. And that is what every politician must and should do to stamp out, to ensure that it does not pollute everything that is so wonderful about Great Britain. Back in January, my department hosted its first ever Holocaust Memorial Day. Those there heard firsthand from survivor Mala Tribic about the horror of anti-Semitism has wrought in the past century. To think that in our hyper-evolved 21st century, anti-Semitism continues to rear its ugly head, to see how it's evolved, and it's often become hidden behind the mask of supposed anti-Zionism. It makes me shudder. It makes me worry as to how people, anyone, can justify it. So I'd like to take this opportunity to make another pledge. This government has a zero-tolerance approach to racist ideology, and we are committed to fighting anti-Semitism wherever it is, wherever it raises its ugly head. We will do everything we can to stamp it out. History has shown us that the Jewish community has often been the first in society to face prejudice when intolerance rears its ugly head. The recent rally in Parliament Square palpably demonstrated a sense of deep unease within the Jewish community in our country. I share your unease. None of us want to see it. None of us want to tolerate this anti-Semitism. It is wrong, and it must not be tolerated. It is why Prime Minister Theresa May was the first leader to adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's modern definition of anti-Semitism. Let us be clear. Anti-Semitism is a cancer within our society, and it needs to be rooted out. The Prime Minister and her whole government will stand in solidarity with this country's great Jewish community every step of the way to make sure that we achieve that. I want to thank all of you for giving me the privilege to share this Simcha. Sadly, I was in the process of reading my own words, which I'd phonetically written out, and I obviously can't read my own writing. To share this Simcha with you. And I wish Israel Mazel Tov on a very happy 70th Independence Day. Most especially, I would like to thank all of the members of Bnei Akiva as a movement you have always led from the front. Your slogan is Torah ve'avodah. I feel as if I'm getting sympathy claps here. Don't worry, it's coming to an end. But it is about commitment, it is about service, and it's about leadership. It's about remembering those who gave their lives to ensure our freedom. They understood that they had to give everything so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we do today. And we must always honour them for what they do. But now is a time to celebrate. And as you have just sung so beautifully, this is the day the Lord has made to celebrate and to rejoice. So please do.